It's the best of the rest. Time to put them to the test. In case your memory is hazy, it's Blaxploitation, baby. This is Black History Month, a 29-day celebration of Black exploitation films.
Give me 5 on the black hand side. Now for something a little more lighthearted, easygoing, and friendly. Notice I didn't say family friendly, because 5 on the black hand side is about a family that is anything but friendly to each other. Releasing in 1973, 5 on the black hand side actually got its start as a stage play written by Charlie L. Russell in 1969. Side note about Charlie Russell, he's the older brother of Hall of Fame basketball player Bill Russell. Charlie Russell came up with the idea of 5 on the black hand side after being inspired by the civil rights movement and the women's liberation movement that followed. He wanted a way to discuss these themes, but in a funny kind of way. The success of the play led to Russell getting the opportunity to adapt it to a full-length film, and while watching the film, its stage play roots become immediately obvious. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's just really easy to tell when dialogue and scenes have been written with an audience in mind. 5 on the black hand side is another one of those movies during this era that detracts heavily from blaxploitation themes. There ain't a pimp or a drug dealer to be found, and even more than that, the family at the center of the film is pretty well off and middle class. It's actually refreshing that every now and then, a movie doesn't drown its characters in poverty and violence, because there's way more to show when it comes to black people. 5 on the black hand side is the story of the Brooks family, led by overbearing patriarch John Henry Brooks, played by Leonard Jackson. Jackson had an extensive career in acting, appearing in The Color Purple and even had a small role in Uptight. But the role I remember him most for is when Strachan J gave him the smell test in Boomerang.
This is the essence of sex.
Mr. Brooks, as he demands his family refers to him, rules his family with an iron fist and like it's a business. He tells his wife what she can and can't do and what she can wear. And I can't help but think that when your grandma talks about those real men from the past, this is what she means.
You have some free time around noon. I think you should take a walk. Yes, walk.
As a result of Mr. Brooks' behavior, his household is all jacked up, but in a comical sense. One of his sons, Gideon, played by the great Glenn Turman, is completely alienated because of his militant views and decides to live on the roof. But the joke is, he still comes into the house to wash and eat, meaning he half-asses it. Another brother, Booker T, played by D'Urville Martin, is embracing Pan-Africanism and even goes as far as to change his name to Sharif. But the joke is, it's revealed later on in the movie that he loves white women and is going through a bit of an identity crisis. The movie handles the conversation about it a lot more mature than I would have thought.
You wanna know what I think? I think you're afraid of sisters because you can't deal with them. Yeah, that's right. You the kind of dude who winds up marrying white.
No, man, no. Who you sleep with, the first face you see in the morning is very significant, man. That's where you get your energy from. It's your mirror, Booker. That is your mirror. Can you dig it? Now, man, you ought to be getting your black thing together instead of going around sleeping with the enemy, huh?
No, people are people. That white chick ain't nobody's enemy. She's an individual. And a beautiful one at that.
A serious conversation about miscegenation was not on my blaxploitation bingo card. And then there's the daughter, who doesn't have a large part to play in the film, but the wraparound story is about her getting married. And what possibly could be wrong with that? Well, she's having an African-themed wedding, which Mr. Brooks hates. Mr. Brooks himself is quite the character. With the way he treats his wife and kids, and with how he dresses, you would think he was some kind of big-timer. I mean, look at him. Tell me that's not a dress for success drip. But remember, this is a light comedy, so what do you think Mr. Brooks does for a living? Banker? Nah, that's too obvious. Pastor? I can see how you might think that given the genre. Lawyer? Possibly. But the answer is none of the above. Mr. Brooks is actually a barber. In fairness, he in fact owns the barbershop. But that doesn't make it any less funny that he gets dressed up in a full suit only to walk a few blocks and take most of it off. That's about as hilarious as 5 on the Black Hand Side gets, unfortunately. The comedy here is very understated and requires you to pay close attention to what's being said in the moment. You might not get that a joke has been said until a few seconds after it's been told. Believe it or not, despite having all the pieces in place for a classic film, I feel like 5 on the Black Hand Side falls a little short. I think in an effort to get every character's point of view across, it actually fails to give proper closure to any of them. Most of the attention is paid to Mr. and Mrs. Brooks' conflict with each other, and Mrs. Brooks gaining the courage to stand up to Mr. Brooks. But even that devolves into complete silliness by the end of the film. Also, so much of it is dedicated to the barbershop antics of Mr. Brooks and his co-workers that you almost start to wonder why the entire movie didn't just take place there. What we end up with is probably an over 2-hour movie stuffed into an hour and a half. The ending is unsatisfactory also, but with that being said, it's still a fun little family movie that at least has some interesting subject matter. Be on the lookout for appearances from Godfrey Cambridge, playing himself for some reason, Dick Anthony Williams, not playing a pimp this time, and Janet Dubois, who was Walona on Good Times. Even with the criticisms, I enjoyed 5 on the Black Hand Side. At the very least, it's a welcome distraction from all the usual trappings of blaxploitation, and in the end, that's exactly what it was meant to be.